Deep in the jungle. Here we go. It is Gilby in his lab. Can you believe it? It's like his natural habitat up here in the hills.
I spend most of my days right here.
We love it. Motorcycles, music, and nature.
Exactly.
There we go.
It's nice and quiet. You can hear crickets up here. You can hear the animals fighting each other. It's
you get
nice.
Some.
We get it all, man. We had a pack
badgers
of,
and
we got
skunks and
we have
coyotes,
cougars. We have deer. We have coyotes. Obviously, we had a pack of them 2 or 3 days ago. We just saw a beautiful hawk that really was like the size of my body, just sitting on our ledge over here 2 days ago. And scorpions, rattlesnakes, we get all the other stuff too. We get it all. I know we're in Sherman Oaks, and it's
it's amazing. No, I lived under the Hollywood sign for a while, and we'd see deer and all sorts of stuff all the time up there. It's beautiful. Well, I go back to the early days. I found out about your group Candy when you guys were playing the L.A. street scene.
Street scene, oh my God!
I think it was like 81.
Probably right around there.
Yeah, I just moved here in '80. I was coming down from the Seattle, Vancouver area, and I'm hearing about this band, and I go see. I knew they had you tucked away on this side stage over here, but just that whole street scene was real cool.
Yeah, it was nuts, man. What I remember, we played it a couple times. We played. You probably saw us when I was probably singing in the band then. Because if we were on the small stage, it was the year that I was singing. We did the big stage, where, believe this or not, Run DMC opened for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was that year. That was the year.
Probably like 81 or something.
Yeah,
I was just
like
a guitar
81.
player in the band at that time.
Yeah. No, I think Kyle was singing.
Yeah. But what I remember about it, what was odd about the street scene was, this was before all these festivals started happening and just getting your gear from the street to the stage was dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
People literally were like taking things we had a truck, and people were literally taking things as we were trying to get to the stage and stuff.
It was a free show. Nobody went through metal detectors.
Exactly.
Security was probably very sparse.
Well, you're right. You go back always.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And I grew up, of course, loving rock and roll and pop, and so the power pop, and of course the glam and the glitter.
Yeah.
That was the mixture. And right after that, I went to see you guys at Madame Wong's West with
right on.
Paul Stanley and Lisa Hartman in the crowd.
Oh, funny.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Now, was Paul coming to possibly produce the band?
Yes, that was the idea. I mean, we were managed by Kiss's manager at the time, Howard Marks. And at that time, Howard only had, 3 acts. He had us, Diana Ross, and Kiss. What an odd collection.
Yeah.
And, of course, his first thing, maybe Paul should, produce you guys and stuff. And, us being huge Kiss fans, we were just excited to meet him, number one.
Right.
But I don't know why, I think the producing thing ended up going, well, I know who it went to. It went to Jimmy Einer, who produced like Grand Funk.
Yeah, Raspberries and the Rollers and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was our choice at the time. And I think where I was probably one that was pulling more for Paul. The singer was probably pulling a little bit more for Jimmy Einer.
Yeah. But coming from Cleveland, Ohio, the Raspberries, that was
huge.
Go All the Way. That was a great number, of course.
Absolutely.
Eric Carmen and
Wally Bryson.
Jimmy went on to doing the Dirty Dancing after that, right?
That I don't remember, but probably.
Now, obviously, coming from Cleveland, I'm sure you were kidding candy stores, so to speak, coming out here, Hollywood, the palm trees and all the rock and roll. I guess you moved out here with your mother, your family?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the decision? Do you have any part of that, or you just happened to be, hey, we're moving to L.A.?
I've talked about this publicly. At that time, it was right when I was about going to high school. And I was a bad kid in Cleveland. I was getting into trouble. Even though I was a musician, I was still a little troublemaker. And I think my mother kind of saw me going in a bad direction. My family, most of them had already moved to California, so my mother's like, I'm going to take the 3 kids, change the scenery, and let's move to California. So no, I had nothing to do with the decision.
Just the luck of the draw.
Luck of the draw. I mean,
ended up here rather than Toledo or
wherever the East Coasters go. But when I first got here, the first thing that I noticed more than anything, besides the girls were just gorgeous, and as a teenager, I mean, that's the first thing you're looking at.
Yeah, a lot of bikinis.
But I noticed how friendly people were. Like, people you didn't even know would go, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, how you doing? I'm like, fuck off, you don't know me. Like, the friendliness took me a little while to adapt to that. It's not, I'm not saying I was a dick, but I was just a different, Cleveland is a different world, a little colder,
Yeah, they're more open-minded here. It's kind of the wild, wild west. Everything's kind of free
just a little freer. I mean, I'm
easy.
sure from Seattle you noticed the same thing. Seattle is a little more reserved, than California. So that's kind of really what my first impressions were, was just noticing people were friendlier, the girls are prettier. Like I said, I was a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
I was young, and but when I got to high school, the first thing I did was I started a band, and I had a local band, and we were immediately like playing the school dances, parties, wherever we could play, we played a gig.
All that.
Yeah, backyards, exactly. And it was, for me, it was a great way just to kind of meet other people, even musicians. And what I remember back then is, when you were starting a band, it's like all you had to say was, I like rock. Well, we all liked, every rock band. There wasn't like these categories that there are today, It's just you liked rock. It's like if you, like Kiss or Led Zeppelin or Ted Nugent, you probably still like the new Boston record, because it was all tied together.
It was a wide net.
It was a very wide net. And so it was fairly easy finding musicians, to get together and play. And I always said I was already playing gigs, and to be honest, I really didn't even know all my guitar chords yet. I was just still learning and playing live. Good. But that was my, my way of adapting and stuff, was being in a band and getting out there and playing.
Yeah. So now, how do you get together with Jonathan Daniel and these guys right here?
Ah, right. Oh my God. Yes.
We got the first run, the promo version, whatever happened to fun right there, man, in front of the Statue of Liberty. So how did you meet these guys? We know Jonathan's the big wig now.
Oh yeah, you're very big wig.
The big manager, Crush Music, and of course Kyle went on to do his thing. But how did all this come together? Where did you meet these guys?
When we had already been going to Hollywood, because the bands that we liked, when I was in my high school years, I mean, I really liked the New York Dolls. I loved Bowie. I liked T-Rex. I definitely had a little bit of different tastes, even though I still liked Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Ted Nugent. I still liked Bowie. I had an English girlfriend at the time, and she really turned me on to a lot of different music, like The Clash. And it's just, it was just really opened my eyes to different kinds of music and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was always, even though I was in a band, I was keeping an eye, and I saw an ad one day, and it said, guitarists wanted, Bowie and T-Rex. And I was like, oh my God.
Was this the Recycler?
Yeah, it was a Recycler, exactly. Recycler, you're right, Recycler.
So many bands found each other in the Recycler.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
And that was also at the time when, London was around, Motley Crue was around, Nicky was starting Motley Crue and all that stuff. And so, we go to Starwood, and you'd run into people at the Starwood and the Whiskey and the Troubadour. And that's what I saw an ad, and I answered the ad, and, got the gig with the band, and, we started out right away. And at the time, Kim Fowley was working with Candy at the time. The band was together before I joined.
There was a previous guitarist.
Exactly, yeah. And so when I joined the band, Kim Fowley was like, wow, it's a complete different sound now. You guys are definitely more rock and roll, where before it was just plain pop, So I had already had some recording experience. So Kim actually had me produce the first demo tape that Candy did, which was like a 10-song. I mean, I haven't heard it in a long time. Probably sounds terrible. But I learned a lot. Kim really took us all under his wing. And what was interesting was he had different relationships with all of us. Kyle, the singer, kind of became his assistant and really taught him about the business. And the same with Jonathan. Jonathan, really, started. Jonathan was always pretty bright, but he, really started understanding, the record companies and the lawyers and people that had to be at the show. And for me, it was much more about the technique of recording and stuff. Like I really liked recording and bringing the sound we had live to tape at that time.
Yeah.
So Kim really had a big influence with all of us, and he would give me, I would call these rock and roll lessons that he would actually say, look at all my gold records on the wall, someday you'll have all this, and this is how you write a song, and he'd show me how he wrote a song. And Kim could never play guitar, play piano, but he wrote a lot of hit songs in his day.
Kiss, Alice Cooper.
And we always, as a musician and artist, we always came from it's art, it's like, the lyrics got to be like T-Rex and Bowie and psychedelic. And so Kim was a big influence for me. He just kind of, I don't want to say he took the art out of it, but he kind of brought the reality into it and kind of showed us, what it is really like out there. You can still be an artist and still have those dreams and stuff, but it is still a business, and the business part is very important.
Yeah, I just watched the new Joan Jett documentary yesterday.
I haven't seen it yet, no.
I'm going to send you a link. It is unbelievable.
Oh, fantastic.
And of course, Kim is, all through it. Heavily, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Absolutely, and we all experienced all that, of course.
Yeah. There'll never be another character like him.
Absolutely not.
And... rock and roll definitely was the benefactor. So obviously this coming out, was your first taste, and you got the kind of feeling like, oh man, we got to compete with all these other acts within our own label, more or less all the other acts out there in the world. Yeah. And trying to get this sound on radio at the time must have been an enormous task.
We were a little early. I mean, I always said at that time, it's funny because when I hear the record, I don't love the record. I thought it was a bad representation of what we sounded like. It's
slick,
still,
or
what's that?
Too slick.
It's just too. Yeah, it's too slick. I mean, we were very raw. It's like we were definitely like a pop rock band.
Right, you little Ramones with a little
Marshall.
Yeah.
And like our influences at the time was like Generation X and the Clash. But Kyle did have this like angelic voice, and we liked that he had such a great voice with the raw element of our band. And I remember, this is something I'll never forget, sitting down with Jimmy Einer, and he's saying, well, what do you guys want to achieve on this record? And we all said the same thing, Generation X. And he goes, yeah, well, you've achieved that. Now let's make it listenable. Like, he didn't get it. He didn't get the rock and roll part. He just was thinking singles and, charting and stuff like that. And I think the way that he was chasing that with us, which we clearly weren't, the record's a little, in my opinion, it's a little messy. It's not cohesive. If you can take any live board mix of the band, you'll get a better feel of what the band was than the record. You know? And so I also think at that time it was before MTV took over and really led the way to bands, like Poison and even, Motley Crue and everything that came afterwards. We were just a little ahead of, not ahead of our time, but we were just a little too soon. We came, even though at the time we were on MTV 5 times a day. 5 times a day they were playing us. It didn't mean anything back then. It's, matter of fact, we all lived in Hollywood, and we couldn't even get MTV. It's like the Valley had MTV, but Hollywood, we didn't get MTV.
So you'd hear about it, but it wasn't moving the needle.
We knew about it, yeah, but it didn't mean anything. Once again, a couple years later, when bands like Poison came out, and they had those things where you could vote from it blew up bands like Poison.
TRL and all that.
Exactly. So anyway, that was, I just thought that we were just a little bit, once again, I don't want to say we were ahead of our time. We weren't organized enough for our time. Like at that. We weren't as focused as a band. We were a pop band, we were a rock band, we were a punk rock band, where you really needed to be defined. Like I said, Motley Crue was a hard rock band. Scorpions were a hard rock band. I think that we were, a little confusing to the audience.
But still a great experience, obviously.
Absolutely.
What studio did you do it in?
We did it actually in Florida, in Amigo. Wow. Yeah, which I actually love that idea, which was get us away from Hollywood, which we all lived in the same apartment together. Four young guys in an apartment in Hollywood, and there are a lot of distractions. So they took us to Florida to record our record, which I actually thought was a great idea, because we really did focus on the record while we were there. I mean, we had fun, but we really were there to just record the record.
Well, I haven't seen the band live many times before I heard the record. I know what you're saying, There was an edge, there was an energy that wasn't quite captured.
I agree.
And if this would have to stand alone just at radio, and radio was very fragmented, like you say, more punk and more edgy new wave type stuff coming in, it was hard to stand out.
It's hard to define.
Yeah.
It's hard to define. Like I said, we weren't rock, We weren't pop, we weren't punk, but we really were all three of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
now, I remember at the time Jonathan was like booking at Matamoros was?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you guys had to in there whenever the prime slots, and of course.
But we drew well, man. When we were headlining, you know, we headlined the Palace as a local band before Deal. You know, Troubadour multiple nights and stuff. I mean, we did fairly well. Like the Wong stuff was actually, for us, having Jonathan had more control over it. And I actually did sound there, was my job. You know, I worked there as a sound man. But it was just a way, really, because even though we were headlining all these venues, we really weren't making any money back then. Yeah. And even a headlining band was barely making $500.
Sure.
You know, so when we worked at Wands, we were making like about $3,000 when we were playing a smaller place, but at least we were getting a real cut of the door.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you play the Starwood back then?
We missed the Starwood.
Okay,
yeah,
Starwood
we
was
did the
kinda on the way
Troubadour
out.
whiskey, even the whiskey before it was closed. I don't know if you remember, but whiskey closed for quite a few years there. And the last week before they closed, they kind of had the best of the whiskey bands. We actually headlined one of those nights, Candy, as the bands that went before they closed.
Beautiful.
It. Yeah.
So next comes Kill for Thrills.
Kill for Thrills.
Now, obviously, you had more control, more of what you were trying to get out. You had the experience of putting out a record, and you know, more savvy in the world of the record business. What do you feel you achieved with that? What worked well? I know you were at MCA at the time, and you know, the hallowed halls there on Lancashire. We passed by, like, man, there used to be a big record company here. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think for me. Well, what happened with Candy in the end was, you know, between management and label, there was a lot of problems. You know, it's like everybody was saying, you know, you guys are more of a rock band, and your singer's more of a pop singer. And we, Kyle left the band, you know, and I became the singer after a while. Because whenever we had the jam nights, I always sang and played guitar. So there was a version of Candy where I actually sang, played guitar, and we brought in Ryan Roxy as the second guitar player. So after that, you know, Candy really wasn't going anywhere, and I just really wanted to be more rock. Not, once again, not metal, but just more rock. And that's why I started Kill for Thrills. You know, it wasn't really for a control issue, because, to be honest, I loved the way Jonathan directed our band, and he, you know, he's a bright guy. He knew what to do. You know, I was more of, you know, the rock star guy. I didn't want to know anything about it. So Kill for Thrills, you know, for me was just a more honest band for me. It's like I wrote pretty much most of the songs. It was just, it's just a more honest version of really what I wanted to do. It's funny because if you hear the Kill for Thrills record today, and you listen to my first or my fourth solo record, they really don't sound that different. The music really hasn't changed. You know, it's like I'm a rock and roll guy at heart, but I do like, you know, pop melodies. You know, I love the Beatles, I love the Stones. You can still hear those same influences on the Kill for Thrills record as you'll hear on my new record coming out next year.
Now, the development of that band, obviously, again, you're still stuck in a major label mentality where it's all about radio. You know, what's the chart activity and all that. What was the biggest challenge that was hard to overcome over there? Was this the Irving Azoff era, or
no? This is the oh god, man.
What's his name? Richard Palmese, or
no. It was
Al Teller.
It was Al Teller. We were Al Teller's first signing. And that was our biggest obstacle. We actually got signed by Al Teller, and we really didn't have proper A&R direction. And also, I think that MCA was trying to get in the game, which, you know, Geffen was destroying everybody at that time, and our RCA and a couple other labels. MCA wanted to get their foot in there, so we were their signing at the time. And I just don't think, once again, they really knew what to do. Grunge was starting to come in, but in a weird way it was good for us because, to be honest, Kill for Thrills was probably more grunge than it was Warrant and Poison. You know, we were, like, we never wore, if you see pictures, we never wore all that stuff. We were really a raw band. As a matter of fact, our first tour we did was with, like, an alternative band. I can't remember the name of the band, but it was with an alternative band, you know. And it just, the record company thing was definitely confusing. You know, we had strong management, but we actually got everything. We got a record deal. I had already had my publishing deal with Virgin before we ever had our management deal. We got our management deal, and they got us our merchandise deal, which is the only thing that kind of came back on us later. Everything else, things were going in the right direction. But once again, it was a hard, difficult time, you know, to be a band at that time.
And obviously, you're friends with a lot of the musicians around
Oh, yeah.
town.
Mhm.
And of course, Slash is playing in
Guns was definitely happening
Blackstreet
at
and
that
doing their
time.
yeah, and then Guns starts brewing up. Now, when you first heard the Appetite for Destruction album, what was your impression?
I was blown away. Blown away. When I first heard it, I actually heard it on a cassette. Jonathan and I went into his car, and he goes, "I have the new Guns record," and he played it. And the first thing I said when I heard that record is, "Who the hell played guitar on that record?" Seriously, I mean, I've said this to Slash over the years too. When you saw Guns N' Roses at that time, the first thing you said was Axl was a star. He was great. Steven was solid. Slash was a mess. You know, he was always out of tune. You know, he didn't really play that great. You couldn't really tell that he was a talented guitar player in those early Guns days. That's what I saw. When I heard that record, the first thing I said is, "Oh my God. That's the best guitar playing I have heard in forever." I mean, it was really, like I said, what I liked, you know, which was Les Paul and Marshall, blues influence. It wasn't popular at that time.
Right.
And they really just they nailed it. That record, they nailed. To this day, it's still one of the greatest rock and roll records ever created.
So it was Slash's playing that you loved, but it was through Mike Clink and making sure you got the right takes.
Whatever it was. I mean, I wasn't there at that time, but whatever they did, the band that I saw live many times did not sound like the band on that record that I heard. That record was fantastic. I mean, obviously, as I got to know Slash, I talked to him about that, and he just said that they focused. You know, they put all the side shit away, and they really focused on making a great record, which is, you see the results of that.
Yeah, this many years on, it still sounds brand new.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, timeless music. Rumbo recorders and all that, you know.
Which is not one of the best recording studios in the world, but they made a great record out of it.
Yeah. Little known fact, Captain Antonil owned it.
I know.
The Muskrat Love was in there somewhere. So now, obviously, you're starting to get some, I don't know, were there rumors you're hearing about, like, you know, Izzy is a little antsy, not happy with Axl.
Yeah.
What are you starting to hear?
I heard the same thing you heard and the same thing everybody else heard. You know, I didn't have any in, really. I had heard that Izzy was unhappy. Josh Richmond was working with the band at the time. Josh was an old friend of mine. And I called Josh because I didn't have Slash's phone number. I mean, funny enough, Matt had just joined the band. I did know Matt from the Madams Wong's days and stuff. And oddly enough, the person I knew the most in the band was Izzy. And I didn't have Izzy's number anymore, you know. So when I heard about it, I called Josh. I go, "Hey, Josh, what's going on out there?" He goes, "Yeah, we don't really know what's happening. We don't know if Izzy's gone for good or what's happening, but they are looking for a guitar player." So and as I was saying, he goes, "You know what? I'm going to give Slash your number. This is Josh's idea." So he did, and I got a call from Slash like that night, literally, and he said, "Hey, man, we're looking for a guitar player. Will you come down and play?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." I mean, at that time, the Illusion records weren't out yet.
Okay.
You know, they were just
They were
about
in the
to come out.
can.
Yeah, they were in the can. They had already started to do a little bit of pre-touring on it, but the records weren't out. So he said, "Just learn 3 songs, you know, and come down tomorrow." So I did. I listened to the records, and to be honest, I really listened to them and probably didn't play them much. And I came down the next day, and I played with them. And at the end of the day, he just said, "Hey, you know what? Leave your stuff, come back tomorrow." So I go, "That's great." When I got home, I was working with a friend of mine named Joe Dog, who's from Dogs D'Amour. He's a good friend of mine. And we were doing a little blues project together. And I called him after the rehearsal. I didn't even say anything. And he goes, "You'll never believe this." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "I just got a call from Slash that they're looking to audition guitar players." And I went like this, "Oh, that's odd." And I didn't even tell him, but it was like, because I didn't want to, he seemed so excited. You know, I didn't want to say, "Well, I just got back from that audition." So, but what I did think was, "Oh, wow, I must not have got the gig because they're calling Joe," you know. But sure enough, Slash called me like an hour before. "Hey, man, don't forget to be here at this time," and everything. So I went, "Oh, okay." I came down the next day. I actually played with them for 3 days, and that like 3 afternoons, probably played 6 songs total in 3 days. And he said, "All right, we'll let you know." And so the next week, this is funny. He called me sitting in my living room, like all of us. MTV's on in the background with no music on, just the TV's running. And I was on the phone with Ryan Roxy, and we were talking about something. And I look up and I go, "Ryan?" And I go, "What's that?" I go, my picture's on the TV right now. And I go, what? And I swear to you, my picture was on the TV while I'm talking to Ryan. And next thing you know, I got a click through, and I go, hey, I got to take this. And it was Slash. He goes, hey, man, you got the gig. We're leaving next week. Learn the whole catalog.
So they had announced it to MTV before they called you.
Before me, yeah. I mean, they might have done it like boom, boom. But yeah, I literally saw it and got a phone call, and that's a true story.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, was this at Mates, or where were you rehearsing?
No, we weren't at Mates. I think we were at Third Encore, actually.
Okay.
Which, I mean, the band always rehearsed at Mates, but we weren't at Mates when we did that.
Okay, right up the street.
The little funny trivia is when I got there, I actually had a tech because I'd been doing some gigs with Kill for Thrills and stuff, and I brought my little Marshall half stack, my Les Paul, my Telly and stuff, and they marked off an area where Izzy's amps were, and they wrote on the tape, do you have what it takes to fill this space? And it was McBob, which, has been Dust Tech for, 100 years.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I thought that was funny. I had to put my amp right in that spot.
Oh, man. So the first gig, where was that?
First gig was in Boston. The second gig, we did 2 nights in Boston, then the second show was 3 nights at Madison Square Garden. Oh. So it was literally thrown into fire. I mean, I honestly did not get to play all the songs with the band. I spent that week, glued to the records and everything, just listening to side left to learn all my parts and everything like that. And I went on stage that first show with only 1 cheat sheet, and it was actually Izzy's cheat sheet from Coma, which is their longest song. And, but I did it. No cheat sheets, no nothing.
Amazing. So now, how long did it take to really ease in where you felt comfortable and an equal?
I don't know if I ever really felt equal, but I mean, to feel as a part of the band, it did take a little while. I mean, we had done, this was towards the end of the year. I don't really remember correctly. It was in 93 or 91 maybe.
Okay.
But they had just, they had a run of dates, and then the holidays came up, and then the next run of dates were in Japan at the Tokyo Dome. It really wasn't until the Tokyo Dome that I really started feeling a part of things. I think even everybody at that point didn't know what Izzy was really doing. I think that they all really...
So the whole time you never knew...
Yeah, I mean, they were all being cool to me because they all... the odd thing about it, and I mean, I'm speculating too, is you got to remember... I was in a couple successful bands before they started Guns N' Roses, so I'm not saying that they looked up to me. I'm not saying that, but I mean, I was definitely not like the young kid coming in. I was an established musician joining the band. So they were extremely respectful. Like Axl was incredibly respectful to me. But they didn't, it's not like they didn't treat me like a band member or did. I think they were just cautious because there probably was a chance that Izzy was going to come back, So I think that maybe they were just kind of keeping, their arm's length away,
Had to keep the machine going, but being a founding member and a main writer,
yeah, it took a little while.
You could get a phone call any day.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I felt that, and I did know that, I mean, that's the one thing, the difference between... me and when the guys started the band, I knew what I was getting into. I knew the band's reputation. I knew, that things could end tomorrow. And I even said to myself, when I did do it, I go, look, I'm not going to try to be Izzy. I'm going to just be myself. If they accept me for who I am, then great. It's all icing on the cake, But I mean, at least I don't have to, try to be something I'm not. I'm just going to be myself, play guitar the way I play guitar. If they have ideas, of course I'm going to listen to it. But if it works out, but it all could end tomorrow, and that's the way I went through it.
Yeah, amazing time. So, the live era albums you're on and Spaghetti Incident. What was the involvement on that?
Well, Spaghetti Incident was a kind of tricky because as we were out on tour, and once again that tour lasted 2.5 years long, the band kind of wanted to take a break once the tour was over from making a new record or whatever. But at the time the band was so hot, it's like anything it could put out.
Record companies barking something.
So I don't really know all the details of it, but there was the idea of putting out this covers record that was just the influential bands that inspired the band and stuff. So some of the stuff was recorded when they did the Illusion Records. They kind of just had it in their back pocket. And then along the way we did get together and record some stuff. Like we were on the road, we recorded a song. We had a break, we recorded a couple songs. I mean, we still went in to record music and everything. But when, and that's kind of when I got my feet wet with the band guys. And I think once again, it kind of solidified why things work so well. Is they really wanted, they like to cut things live, like really, like, we're all playing together. I mean, the amps are separated, but they like that live feel, and I preferred it too. I like looking at the drummer and playing, looking at Slash, looking at Duff playing, and getting that response and wanting to play good for them. To me, that's the magic of music, and I fit right in that when we tracked. They didn't have to tell me what to play. One of the first songs I recorded with the band was "Since I Don't Have You," the old '50s song. And even when I'm listening to it, we're rehearsing it and stuff, and I was playing electric part, I'm going, Slash, there's nothing that I can really do that you're not already doing, And I go, why don't I play acoustic on it? And that's what I did. So when you listen to the track, it's like the left side's me playing acoustic, and Slash playing electric on the right side.
Wow.
Can we take a break? My
Yeah,
phone is